Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought one moment, just one decision, could turn my whole world upside down. You think you know someone. You think you know yourself. But what happens when you're pushed too far, when you're tired, overwhelmed, and feel like no one's listening? That's where my story begins. With a choice I made in the heat of everything, and a secret I kept because I was too ashamed to face what it might do to us. My husband, James, was the kind of man people said was too good to be true. Patient. Thoughtful. A steady calm in all the chaos of life. We had our share of arguments, sure, but nothing ever felt like it could break us until it did. Or at least, I thought it did. See, people talk a lot about love and forgiveness, but when you're the one who messes up, when you're the one who crosses that invisible line, those words feel like a distant dream. I never planned to betray him. It wasn't that kind of thing. But life has a strange way of catching you off guard. I was lonely, stressed, and feeling more like a roommate than a wife. The conversations had grown short, the silences longer. And then, there was someone who listened. Someone who made me feel seen again. No, it didn't go as far as you're thinking, but it was enough. Enough to break his heart. Enough to shatter the trust we'd built over 8 years. When he found out, I braced for the worst. I pictured yelling, tears, maybe even divorce papers. I wouldn't have blamed him. What I didn't expect was silence. No reaction. Just this look in his eyes I'll never forget. It was like I'd taken the light out of him. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else could have. But what happened next, his reaction, the way he handled everything, it changed everything I thought I knew about love. And myself. This story isn't just about heartbreak. It's about the surprising depth of a husband's love, the painful road to redemption, and the unexpected twist that made us question everything about our relationship. It's a story of real marriage, the kind that's messy, complicated, but still worth fighting for. Before we go any further, I want to ask you, have you ever done something you regretted, but didn't know how to fix it? Have you ever kept a secret because you were too afraid of the consequences? Tell me in the comments. Or answer the poll, would you forgive your partner if they betrayed your trust, even once? Stick around, because what comes next will challenge everything you think you know about forgiveness and love. Make sure you hit that like button if you're already hooked, subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and share this with someone who needs to hear a real story about second chances. The night James found out was colder than usual, but I remember sweating like I was standing under the sun. He came home earlier than expected. I was in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone, trying to act normal. But the air had changed. He didn't say anything at first, just dropped his keys on the counter and stared at me for a long time. It was in that silence that I knew. He knew. Somehow, some way, the truth had reached him. But he didn't yell. He didn't throw anything. He didn't even raise his voice. That's what scared me the most. He just looked at me with this expression, like I was a stranger. And that look hit harder than any words ever could. What followed was a week of distance. We slept in the same bed but felt like miles apart. We had dinner at the same table, but barely exchanged a word. I kept thinking he'd explode eventually, demand answers, ask who it was. But he didn't. He just shut down. And honestly, that kind of pain is worse. Because at least anger is a reaction. At least it shows you still care. But silence. Silence makes you feel like you've already been erased. Let me be clear, I never stopped loving him. Not for 1 second. But I got lost. And in that moment of weakness, I did something I shouldn't have. I needed comfort. I needed to feel like I mattered to someone. And I made a selfish choice that now threatened everything we had built together. The thing is, James and I weren't always like this. When we first met, We were that couple everyone said was perfect for each other. We laughed at stupid jokes. We binge-watched shows in our pajamas. He used to leave me sticky notes with little messages like "you got this" or "coffee's on me today." It was the little things that made us us. But somewhere along the way, life, stress, routine, it all started fading. And I guess I started fading too. Sometimes I wonder if things would have been different if I had just talked to him. Told him how I was feeling instead of bottling it up. But now, all I could think about was the way he looked at me that night. Like he couldn't even recognize the woman standing in front of him. And yet, he still hadn't said the words. Still hadn't told me to leave. Was he waiting for something? Was he planning something? Or was he trying to forgive me in silence? I started noticing small things. He was quieter at work, stopped answering calls from his brother, spent longer hours at the gym. And then, one night, I saw a message flash across his phone screen. A name I didn't recognize. My heart dropped. Was this payback? Was he doing what I did just to even the score? Or had I already lost him, and he just didn't know how to tell me? Drop a comment if you think trust can ever truly be rebuilt after it's broken. What would you do if you were in James' shoes? And if you've ever been through something like this, I'd really like to hear your story too. Don't go anywhere. What happens next will shift everything. That message on James' phone, it played on repeat in my head for days. It was just a name, no heart emoji, no overly flirty tone. But when you're already drowning in guilt, your mind fills in the blanks. You assume the worst. I tried not to jump to conclusions. I tried to act like it didn't bother me. But it did. It haunted me. Was he confiding in someone else now? Getting support from another woman the way I had from someone else? I didn't ask him about it right away. Part of me was afraid of the answer. Part of me thought maybe I deserved to feel that uncertainty. I had done something wrong first, so who was I to question him now? But that didn't stop the questions from eating me up inside. Meanwhile, everything at home stayed surface level. We were polite. We still said good morning and drive safe. But it was like walking on a frozen lake. One wrong step, and everything would crack. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Every dinner was a quiet performance. Every glance, every pause, carried weight. I kept waiting for a fight that never came. There was another layer to all this, too. Our friends. We hadn't told anyone. We still went to dinners, still smiled for photos, still acted like the happy couple people thought we were. I couldn't help but wonder how many other couples were hiding cracks under perfect smiles. And then came the text from my sister. She was planning a weekend trip and wanted us to join. Normally, we'd be excited. But now, I had no idea how James would react. I didn't even know if we'd make it to next week, let alone a weekend getaway. I showed him the text and waited. He read it. Paused. And then said, "Let's go. Maybe it'll be good for us." Good for us. That threw me. What did he mean? Was he trying to fix things, or just pretending for everyone else? Was this a test? The night before the trip, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the message on his phone and about the message I had once sent, the one that started all of this. How does someone forgive when they've been betrayed? And how do you live with yourself when you're the one who caused the damage? During the drive, I watched him closely. His hands on the wheel, his quiet focus. He looked like the same man I married, but something in his eyes had changed. He was carrying something. Maybe the pain. Maybe a secret of his own. And just when I thought things might settle for a moment, he said something that froze me. "There's something I haven't told you either." My heart dropped. Was he about to confess something? Was it about the message on his phone? Or something worse? Drop a comment. What do you think James is hiding? Do you think forgiveness is still possible, or is this marriage already broken beyond repair? Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather. There's something I haven't told you either. My mind went blank. My stomach dropped. I stared out the window, pretending I didn't hear it. But the words just hung in the air between us, impossible to ignore. I finally turned to him. What do you mean? My voice cracked. He didn't answer right away. Just kept driving, eyes locked on the road, knuckles tight on the steering wheel. Every second felt like an hour. I've been talking to someone, he said. Those 5 words lit a fire under my skin. I didn't know if I was angry, scared, or just broken. My mind went back to that message. The name I didn't recognize. Was it her? Was he about to say he'd done the same thing I did? He looked over at me, like he was waiting to see my reaction. But I was frozen. I didn't know how to breathe, let alone respond. I wanted to scream, to ask 100 questions, but nothing came out. The rest of the ride was quiet. Too quiet. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Every sign we passed, every bump in the road, it all faded behind the weight of what he'd said. We pulled up to the cabin my sister had rented. Laughter came from inside. Happy voices. The smell of food. But inside me, everything was tense, twisted. James opened the door and turned back toward me. We'll talk tonight, he said. What was he going to tell me? What was he hiding? Comment below, do you think he really forgave me? Or was this just the beginning of something I never saw coming? Stick around, because the truth is about to hit harder than either of us ever imagined. That night, after the dinner with my sister and her husband, where we both put on our best smiles and laughed like nothing was wrong, we finally got a moment alone. The cabin had a little back deck that overlooked the woods. It was quiet, peaceful. Nothing about the setting matched the storm brewing inside me. James handed me a glass of wine and sat down without a word. I waited, heart racing, expecting him to finally tell me everything. Instead, he pulled out a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket. Read this, he said. I took it with shaky hands. It was a printed email. From a name I didn't recognize, Elena G. It was addressed to him, dated 2 weeks ago. The subject line was just, she needs to know. As I read it, my hands went cold. Elena wasn't someone he was involved with. She was someone I had crossed paths with once, months ago. A woman I barely remembered from a work event. But she remembered me. And apparently, she knew more about my mistake than I realized. She'd been in touch with James, telling him what she saw, telling him everything. That meant he had known long before I confessed. He'd been carrying it, watching me, waiting to see if I'd tell the truth. He had been testing me this whole time. I dropped the paper and looked at him. Why didn't you say anything? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me with tired eyes and said, because I needed to know who you really were. What would you do if your partner tested your loyalty like that? Would you stay or walk away? Leave a comment. The next part of this story will change everything. I stared at James, my mind racing. The fact that he had known all along, it shook me more than anything else. He didn't scream. He didn't accuse. He just waited. And suddenly, it all made sense. The silence. The distance. The calm surface hiding so much underneath. He had given me space to come clean, to be honest. And I had waited too long. I was scared, I finally said, voice trembling. I thought if I told you, I'd lose everything. You almost did, he replied, quietly. But not because of what you did. Because of what you hid. We sat in silence, the weight of everything between us filling the air. I felt raw, exposed. But somehow, I also felt lighter. It was all out now. No more secrets. No more pretending. Then came the twist I never saw coming. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. "No, it's not what you think," he said quickly, seeing my reaction. "I'm not reproposing. I'm not ready for that. But I bought this before I knew. I was planning something for our anniversary. I kept it all this time because I didn't know what I wanted to do with it." He opened it anyway. Inside was a simple gold band with an engraving on the inside, "Still us." I burst into tears. "I'm not saying everything's fixed," he said. "But if we're going to try, we start from the truth. No more pretending. No more waiting." And just when I thought the moment couldn't hold any more weight, he added, "There's one more thing. I didn't just talk to Elena. I talked to him. The man you turned to." My heart stopped. You might want to know what he said. What do you think James heard in that conversation? Would it change everything again or seal the healing process for good? Comment your thoughts, and if you were gripped until the end, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. The final twist might just flip everything on its head. James had spoken to him. The man I never thought he'd confront. The man who, in a brief, vulnerable moment, had filled a space James used to hold. I couldn't find the words. I just sat there, staring, wondering how deep this went, how much pain James had quietly carried. "He told me everything," James said, still calm, still steady. "More than you told me." That stung, but I didn't deny it. I had downplayed the emotional side. Told James it was a mistake, a one-time thing that didn't mean anything. But the truth was, I had confided in someone else. I had opened up in ways I hadn't with my own husband. That was the real betrayal. "He said you cried," James continued, eyes locked on mine. "Said you were scared. Said you hated yourself for it." I nodded. I had. I still did. "I didn't talk to him to scare you," he added. "I talked to him because I needed to understand how we got here. And I realized, we both stopped trying before this even happened. We stopped showing up for each other. It wasn't about blaming anymore. It was about understanding. We were both guilty not of the same actions, but of letting the connection weaken until the silence was louder than the love. And that was the beginning of healing. That weekend at the cabin, we didn't magically fix everything. We didn't fall into some romantic scene with music playing in the background. But we started talking, really talking. We asked hard questions. We cried. We admitted things we were ashamed of. And for the first time in months, we held each other without tension. When we got home, we started therapy. Together. It wasn't easy. Some days, we walked out angrier than we went in. But we showed up. We kept choosing each other. Months later, that ring James had once hidden ended up back on my finger. Not as a symbol of a new proposal, but as a reminder. That real love isn't about perfection. It's about effort. About honesty. About choosing to stay when it would be easier to walk away. So, if you've made it this far, I want to hear from you. How did this ending make you feel? Do you believe people can come back from betrayal? Would you like to see what happens next in our journey? Drop a comment below, I read every one. And if this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to know that healing is possible.